Hello again. So we are going to be reading chapter 4 of the Magic Tree House book, Midnight on the Moon. So far, they went in the Magic Tree House and they landed somewhere. They weren't sure where they were. And then they found out that they were in the future and they were on the moon. So they were inside a space station and now they're about to go out onto the surface of the moon and explore a little bit. And remember, they're still trying to find the fourth M thing. So I know you might have some predictions of what that is, and we'll see if you're right. So chapter 4 is called Moon Rabbits. "Oh, wow," said Annie. She took a step forward, but Jack stood frozen. He wanted to get a good look at everything first. He stared at the ground. He was standing in a layer of gray dust as fine as powder. Footprints were everywhere. Jack wondered who had made them. He reached into his pack for the moon book. To his surprise, it was light as a feather. He found a picture of footprints on the moon. He read, "The moon has no rain or wind to blow the dust around. So footprints will never wear away naturally, not even in 1,000,000,000 years. "Oh man," Jack said. The moon was the stillest place he had ever been. It was as still as a picture, and the stillness would never, ever end. Jack stared at the ink-black sky. A lovely blue and white ball glowed far away. I wonder what that ball is. Do you have a prediction? Earth. For the first time, it really hit Jack. They were in outer space. "Look," Annie cried, laughing. She bounded past Jack, almost flying through the air. She landed on her feet. Then she jumped again. "I'm a moon rabbit," she called. Jack laughed. How could she do that, he wondered. He turned the page and read, "A person weighs less on the moon because of the moon's low gravity and lack of air. If you weigh 60 pounds on Earth, you would only weigh 10 pounds on the moon." So think about that. Some of you might weigh like 60 pounds. My dog weighs 60 pounds. But if you were on the moon, you would only weigh 10 pounds. I have a 10-pound weight here. That means that if you only weighed 10 pounds, I could just lift you up in the air on the moon, just that easy with one hand. It's pretty crazy to think about. "Don't just stand there reading," said Annie, grabbing the book from Jack's gloved hand. She tossed it into space. It flew far away. Uh-oh. Jack stared after it. He bounded up and down. Boing, boing, boing. Now he felt as light as a feather. "Look," he called to Annie. "I'm a moon rabbit too." Where Jack's boots hit the ground, moon dust gracefully sprayed into space. The book had landed at the edge of a shallow crater. When Jack reached it, he tried to stop, but his feet slipped. He fell right over and lay on his side. He tried to stand, but he was off balance. He tried again, but the dust was too deep, and his spacesuit was too clumsy. "You okay?" asked Annie. "I can't get up," said Jack. "You shouldn't have been goofing off," said Annie. "You goofed off first," said Jack. "Now help me up, please." Annie started toward him. "Don't fall too," warned Jack. "I won't." Annie moved very slowly. She half floated, half walked. "Give me your hand," she said. Annie grabbed Jack's hand. She pressed her boot against his and pulled him up. "Thanks," he said. "No problem," she said. "It was easy. You are really light." "Thank goodness," said Jack. "It's impossible to get up alone." He picked the moon book up. It was covered with dust. He brushed it off. "Oh, wow, look," said Annie. She stood at the edge of the crater. "What is it?" said Jack. "A moon buggy," said Annie. So when I heard that term moon buggy, I wasn't sure what it meant. So I looked ahead a little bit to find a picture of it. And this is what they're talking about. It's like a little cart that you can drive over the moon. So that's what it looks like. The buggy was parked in the crater. It had 4 huge wheels. "Let's go for a ride," said Annie. "We can't," said Jack. "We just have 2 hours of air in our tanks, remember?" "I bet we'll find the M thing faster if we take the moon buggy." Annie bounded into the crater. "But we can't drive," said Jack. "I bet I can drive this," said Annie. "It looks easy. Come on." She jumped into the driver's seat. "But you don't have a license," said Jack. "Who cares?" said Annie. "There aren't any roads on the moon or stoplights or policemen either." She was right, Jack thought. "We'll go slow," he said, and he climbed in beside her. Who do you think is more careful, Annie or Jack? I think Jack is a little more careful. Annie seems a little bit more daring. Annie pushed the button labeled on. The moon buggy lurched backwards. "Yikes," said Annie. "Step on the brake," said Jack. Annie pressed a pedal on the floor. The buggy stopped. "Whew," she said. "It must be in reverse," said Jack. "Let me study this." But before he could study anything, Annie pushed another button. Oh man. The buggy tilted back. Its front wheels started to rise into the air. "Let me out of here," said Jack. Annie pushed more buttons. The buggy's front wheels landed back on the ground, and the buggy leapt forwards. "Slower," said Jack. "I can't," said Annie. "I don't know how." Annie steered the buggy over the tracks on the ground. The wide wheels kept it from sinking into the deep dust. "Careful," said Jack. The buggy zoomed out of the crater. Gray clouds of dust rose behind them as they took off across the moon. So that is the end of chapter 4. This chapter reminds me a little bit of me and my brother because he's the one who's more daring, like Annie, and would try all these things, and I'm more like Jack. I think I'm more careful and cautious than he is. If you have a brother or sister, do you think you're more like Jack or more like Annie? And do you think your brother or sister is like Jack or Annie? If you don't have a brother and sister, maybe you have a friend that's more like one of them. So why don't you talk about that today and make some predictions of what's going to happen. I think they're still looking for the 4th M thing, but I'm getting a little nervous because they only have 2 hours of air in their tanks, and now they're on this buggy, so I'm not sure what's going to happen next. You can make some predictions, and next week I will read chapter 5, and we'll see what happens.